Hello, and welcome to Anime Audio Commentary. Today I'll be commenting on episode 6 of Don't Toy With Me, Miss Nagatoro, Second Attack. If you'd like to watch along, then start watching now. So as we left off, Senpai had gotten a cold, Nagatoro had cared for him, and now, they're both sort of feeling better, but things are a bit questionable. Things were said that might change the status quo, but everybody's sort of elected to ignore it for now. But now we have this issue where Nagatoro is approaching her sister for what would be a good Christmas gift for somebody. And, while this might seem innocuous to those outside of Japan, as I understand it, treats Christmas as more of a romantic holiday where you spend time with, people you're romantically interested in, and therefore you give gifts to them. So, Nagatoro's approaching her sister for advice, but, this isn't necessarily the best idea. So, given that Nagatoro's conversation with her sister was about getting somebody important to her a long-lasting and meaningful gift, it seems like Nagatoro has some serious feelings brewing. And I guess this is really only compounded by the fact that the two of them seem to be, going out and about, hanging in front of a nice public Christmas tree. Here we go. We're messing around with dreams again, aren't we? It seems to be a rather big sticking point for Senpai here, in that he seems to have taken to dreaming about Nagatoro romantically. First that they were married, now that he's giving her a Christmas gift in public in front of a nice, beautiful Christmas tree. Of course, he did in fact buy her the gift already, and does indeed intend to give it to her, but, I'd imagine things will shake out in a way that the surroundings aren't nearly so romantic as they were in his dream. So it would seem as though this is something like the end of the school year or something like that. It's Christmas Eve, there were closing ceremonies for the school, so that Nagatoro is bringing up the romance aspect of the holiday is interesting, Surely she doesn't have an ulterior motive, at least in Senpai's mind, Naturally he assumes he's going to be something of an acceptable target for her, but I'm hoping that this isn't going to be the case. Maybe Nagatoro will dial it back just a little bit and, be a little bit more genuine. You know, she is capable of it, and we have seen it before. I mean, you know, it can't be sweet all the time, but I feel like this would be a good episode for it. So things have gotten rather interesting. You know, there appears to be a bit of a dichotomy in Nagataro's group of friends in that some of the girls do have boyfriends, some of them don't, and those that are single are sort of in a situation where, you know, I guess they just have to get together and do something on their own. And interestingly, it doesn't really seem like Nagatoro falls into either category, because on the one hand, she and Senpai, you know, they aren't an item, but they're certainly set apart from the other girls who don't have boyfriends. But at the same time, you know, they're not really a couple, and therefore they're sort of at odds with the other group as well. Now this is actually kind of interesting. You know, they've both sort of covertly taken notice of the presents that each other has bought for the other, and, you know, they don't really have a chance to sort of resolve this before, I guess they're sort of being roped into the all-night karaoke thing. So it was a weird admission almost that Nagatoro says, you know, we're not dating, we're both single, and somehow this, you know, ropes Senpai into the girls' night karaoke thing. That almost seems like the worst possible outcome, in a way. You know, like, I don't know. I feel like it would be just better to bite the bullet and say, like, yeah, we're dating now. What of it? But of course, you know, that would require a spine, and Senpai's got, like, a handful of vertebrae at this point. It is interesting that everybody sort of transparently notices that something's up here and not everybody's being totally honest. I guess fortunately they've both sort of taken advantage of this opportunity to swap presents, even if they don't necessarily know this was the idea behind it all. It is also nice that they're both kind of bashful about it. Although, if they're bashful, you know, they really shouldn't be. I feel like, perhaps the art club president should be more bashful, you know? I mean, she's sort of treating this as, like, you know, I'm not gonna have much more time in the art room, so I better make the best of it, but I don't know. Like, I know that's purely for fan service and comedy, but it just really seems deranged on her part to do something like that. Yeah, so once again, Senpai is presented with a bit of a dilemma here. You know, he does want to give Nagatoro the present, but he's a bit constrained by what other people might think, you know. He doesn't want anybody else to really see him give the present. You know, lest they get the wrong idea, whatever that might be. So I feel like Nagatoro is really just sort of taking advantage of the situation to just tease Senpai a bit more. It's like, oh boy, you know, we're in the nurse's office by ourselves. Surely you don't have any untoward ideas or intentions, do you, Senpai? You know, even though it was her idea. Now, whatever Nagatoro was thinking of, you know, it seems that her friend Sakura beat them both to the punch. Fortunately, Senpai and Nagatoro have the right idea here. You know, it wouldn't be good to hang around and witness something like that. I mean, it might be like bonding in a strange kind of way, like, boy, we both just saw something we didn't really want to see, but yeah, it is rather unfortunate that there isn't just sort of like a quiet moment for them to exchange gifts and, get it out of the way. So, they thought the rooftop might be a quiet, secluded place, but it seems like, basically everybody else in the school had the same idea, and they are much more forward about their intentions than either Senpai or Nagatoro. And it's interesting to see her almost disappointed by the fact that there's no good opportunity for this. Fortunately, she doesn't have to stew on it too much. Senpai just sort of gets it over with without ceremony, essentially giving her the opportunity to reciprocate. You know what, that's kind of a thoughtful gift, a scarf and all that, especially because Nagatoro was complaining about being cold and all that earlier. I mean, maybe her neck wasn't what was cold, but that is a nice gift. And as it turns out, funnily enough, Nagatoro got him a scarf as well, so well, I guess that kind of cinches it. They have to wear their scarves together. So, interestingly enough, Nagatoro and Senpai seem to have skipped out on karaoke. I'm wondering what their rationale behind that is, if they weren't planning on doing anything anyways. Oh dear, so I think I know where this is going. Senpai is getting called by Nagatoro. She wants to hang out, it's New Year's Eve or whatever. Surely his parents aren't going to pick on him over it. So this is an aspect of culture that I'm not all that familiar with, visiting a shrine on New Year's. And I guess it has something to do with the local religion, Shinto, I believe. I guess there's some importance on visiting a shrine in the new year, but I don't know, that's not really something I'm all too aware of. And it's not really something we have an analog for here in the United States either. I mean, nonetheless, Nagatoro sort of roped him into doing it. I'm wondering what her ulterior motive is for this, seeing as how I don't think New Year's is really a romantic holiday in Japan. So I guess, as could be reasonably predicted, the shrine is pretty busy, It's packed with people here to, receive their fortune. And it seems like, it's kind of like a lottery almost, there are various fortunes on various topics and you draw one out of a box, and I guess your fortune is determined by whichever you pick. If you were lucky, you'd pick a lucky fortune, or something like that. Now, I guess the interesting thing here is that Nagatoro, for the day, is working at the shrine, and she seems to have done so only to wear the outfit which she deems cute. And I guess to sort of, tease Senpai a little bit. Yeah, she's not really treating the prospect of being a shrine maiden very seriously. And, Senpai is kinda right. It's a little too early in the new year for this sort of thing. Now, Senpai does make a good point here in that Nagatoro isn't actually working, she's just sort of hanging out with him. And, she sort of deflects by saying, she needs to keep an eye on, the less intelligent visitors. So the real question here is, what exactly is his fortune going to portend, Surely it's going to be something interesting. I mean, Nagatoro managed to luck out in that she received the best possible fortune. I get the feeling Senpai's gonna get some sort of rotten luck. It would only make sense, just so Nagatoro can pick on him a little bit. So it is interesting that the fortune isn't just, good, bad, generically, but there's something about relationships on his fortune, which, boy, isn't that interesting. Now, he just sort of, abruptly leaves, which I feel is, I don't know, maybe for the best, seeing as how his fortune says, you'll miss out unless you take action. Perhaps leaving was actually not a good thing, seeing as how taking action is the root of the fortune, I mean, that's probably as clear a sign as you're gonna get that you just have to, grow a spine here, Senpai. I guess... Oh, well, there you go, Senpai. It seems like he's added a couple more vertebrae to his spine. Nagatoro was just saying something about how life doesn't go the way you want, indicating she was disappointed that Senpai left. But seeing as how he showed up to buy a good luck charm, it seems like maybe things are turning around. It seems like he's actually taking the fortune seriously, It's not going entirely his way here, he can't force himself to say what he wants to, but I guess, baby steps, Senpai. Ah, man. The poor guy, that probably took a lot of, willpower to do, but... I guess given that we as the audience have perspective here, we know that Nagatoro, in all likelihood, likes him just as much as he does her, so... you can sort of, forgive something like this. And I guess from his perspective, this seems like tremendous luck. Nagatoro teases him a little bit, but then says, hey, I'll meet up with you in a little bit, so just, hold on. Alright, so Senpai's being presented with another chance here. She asks him, what's the deal here? And he's saying, well, why don't we do something? We could visit the shrine together. And, I mean, looking at it from the outside, it's very clearly a date. Even if they're not calling that in the show here. Even if Senpai isn't acknowledging that it's a date, nor is Nagatoro, It's very clearly a date, and what's worse is it's a matchmaking shrine. And while I don't exactly know what that is, I can hazard a reasonable guess that it sort of determines the fortune of a burgeoning relationship here. So whether or not Senpai actually had any intentions Nagatoro is certainly ascribing some intentions to him, and, it goes without saying she's just going to start teasing him. I feel like if he just basically doubled down here, that would turn the tables entirely. I mean, here we go, even if he just sort of approaches the topic, she's already getting a little flustered. There we go. Senpai stumbled on the best thing to say here. If he does want to go out with Nagatoro, it's best not to rely on divine intervention and to make it happen yourself. There we go. I mean, sure, even by his own admission, he was just basically reading that off his fortune, but... I think that was definitely the right thing to do and say. So afterwards, they're sort of discussing their wishes now, and, I can't speak for the Japanese, but I was under the impression that you don't really discuss wishes that you make. And even so, I'm wondering if they're actually being honest about what their wishes were. I mean, Nagatoro just straight up says, I wish that eventually I could become your bride. I guess it makes sense that she would make that up, but I'm wondering... I'm wondering which statement here is the lie, whether she's joking about that or joking about joking. Alright, well that's it for this episode. If you've enjoyed it, then by all means, tune in for the next one. See you, Space Cowboy.